Good afternoon. This is the Board of County Commissioners meeting. It is Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. It is 2:03 p.m. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To his right is County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as our clerk of the board, Jamie Caldwell. Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell joining us via Zoom, as well as many other staff members. I'm calling this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Vice Chair Menser, would you like to do a land acknowledgement today?
Yes, ma'am. We would also like to start today with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge the Indigenous Salish peoples who have lived on and cared for the land and waterways of this county since time immemorial and who still inhabit the area today, specifically the Squaxin Island, the Nisqually, and Chehalis people, our sovereign tribal partners. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. The purpose of this acknowledgement is to disrupt ongoing erasure of injustices done and to remember history as a stepping stone towards healing.
Thank you. With that, is there approval of the Tuesday, May 24th agenda?
I move to approve the proposed agenda for Tuesday, May 24th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menser?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Motion passes. Next is the approval of the board meeting minutes for May 17th. Is there a motion?
I move to approve board meeting minutes from May 17th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menser?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. So it is 2:05 p.m. And I want to let all the guests we have here today that we will be pausing at 3 p.m. from a board meeting. We have a public hearing that's set for that time. And after that, we will be resuming our agenda after the public hearing has concluded. With that, we have a presentation scheduled for today, and it's the introduction of new Public Works employees. And Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director, is here.
Good afternoon. Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director, for the record. And during the month of April, we had 7 employees, new employees start for Public Works. I have a couple of them on the meeting today. So for those that are there, if you want to turn your camera on. We have Dan Smith, who is a utilities operator, and he comes to us with over 12 years of experience with water, managing water and sewer utilities. He will be responsible for the operations and maintenance of our Boston Harbor, Tamashan, and Olympic View systems initially, and then will eventually rotate into the Grand Mound system as well. And then Dean Benning. Dean Benning is a senior program manager in the solid waste division. And Dean will be responsible for overseeing the implementation of the solid waste management plan, the county solid waste management plan, and then coordinating the education and outreach efforts with that team, and then leading the asset management program implementation, as well as developing other management solid waste programs and operations. Dean has experience in Kitsap County managing the solid waste program there, as well as a district manager with waste management years ago, and then more recently with the water division, managing that division for Clark County. And we have Lux Crawford. Lux is a scale house operator at our Waste and Recovery Center up in Hawks Prairie, and will also be working at the Rainier and Rochester drop boxes, providing customer service and collecting fees from our customers entering the facilities there. And I think I don't think we have the other employees that started for us. We also have two assistant maintenance technicians with road operations, Chris Pearson and Logan Steffen. They are actually today testing and interviewing for maintenance technician positions that we have available. So excited to have them working here for Thurston County, because we do know that people have choices of where they work. And so we're happy that they're choosing to work here at Thurston County.
Thank you. Comments, Commissioner Edwards?
Welcome aboard.
Commissioner Menzer?
Yeah, welcome to the new employees, and thank you to your team, Jennifer, for the warm welcome I got at the rodeo last week. That was a lot of fun to see the different competitions, and several of your staff were showing me around and helping me understand what was going on out there. So it sounds like you guys are joining a great team. Thank you.
Thank you. And all I'm going to say is welcome to those new staff members. Okay, with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That concludes our presentation. Next is an opportunity for the public to address the board. Now, I have a list here. Some of you have marked that you do not wish to testify. I will still call on you just to be sure that you haven't changed your mind. And then I will call the rest of any other member of the public who would like to testify. I'll give them that opportunity, and then we will move on to the Zoom screen. With that, the first person on my list is Mr. John Pettit. Okay, I will come back to him once he enters. Thank you. Next, I have David Jennings. And there are some guidelines. I apologize. I did not go over them. If you'll, whenever you're ready. Yes, if you'll give them to the clerk. So the Board of Thurston County Commissioners welcomes comments from the public at all meetings. However, there are some guidelines governing such comments to ensure they are appropriate and do not take advantage of the fact that most meetings are televised. The general speaking guidelines are as follows. Please introduce yourself, including the address you reside in the county. Please address the board, not the audience or staff. Please silence your cell phones for those members here in the boardroom. Speakers are limited to a total of 4 minutes to address the board. Meeting attendees cannot donate their speaking time to another person. No comments that are lewd and offensive, inflammatory, hateful, defamatory, or discriminatory in nature. Please be respectful. No outbursts of any kind. No comments that are commercial in nature, such as promotion of a for-profit business. All materials provided to the county may be considered public records, subject to public release upon request pursuant to the Public Records Act, Chapter 4256 of the RCW. Remarks about pending land use permits or similar matters that could eventually come before the board on appeal. And as well, no electioneering. Thank you so much for your cooperation. And Mr. David, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Your commissioners, my name is David Jennings. I live at 3932 Biscay Street Northwest. Before I start, I would like to thank you for your service to the community. I know it's not an easy job being a county commissioner. Thank you. I'm here to speak about the Green Cove Creek Culvert Replacement Project, number 63023. I listened to the briefing last week from Public Works. I thought you raised excellent questions in response. My wife and I are owners of property upon which the culvert is located. Our property will be directly affected by whichever alternative is implemented. The briefing last week focused on the Public Works recommendation of a full road bridge replacement. As identified by Mr. Chavez, the county manager, the presentation could have been more accurate as it portrayed choices as black or white, or in this case, green or red, as opposed to recognizing that a lot of the reds could have been mitigated. Identifying the constraints and challenges and possible mitigation measures is key to making an informed decision. I am comfortable with any of the options being selected as long as they are realistic and timely. The two constraints I see are timing and cost. I'd like to focus on the timing element first. The emergency undersized culvert is threatening homes both above and below the culvert. As presented at the last Wednesday's meeting, the high velocity down gradient is causing serious erosion on the hillsides above which people have houses. On the upside of the culvert, the restriction is so big, it's such a big blockage that, such a big bottleneck, that when we had heavy rains last January, the water rose behind the culvert up to 30 feet. If you are, take an opportunity to look at the culvert setting, and I heard Mr. Minister say he might go drive there. If you look to the west, you'll see a PVC pole I put up that's white, and it has orange on it where the water got up to. So you have a sense of exactly how deep the water got. My wife and I were so afraid that that elevated water level was going to cause the hillside, the very steep hillside we live on, to collapse because it was not only saturated, but it was moving. We all property owners need the emergency culvert pulled and replaced as soon as possible, certainly at least by 2024. The other timing issue is related to salmon passage. First, we have 5 salmonid species used in Green Cove, not just chum. Coho, steelhead, native trout, and sea-run cutthroat also reside in Green Cove. During the briefing to the commission last week, Mr. Scott Lindbergh stated there have not been salmon going up the original culvert for many years. That's simply not true. On our section of Green Cove Creek above the culvert, we've had salmon spawning on our stretch, on our property for the last 25 years. We didn't live there before then, so I can't speak before then, but for the last 25 years, we've had salmon. After the emergency culvert was put in, we also had over 1,100 chum and coho salmon below the culvert trying to get up, but they couldn't because the emergency culvert prevented them from getting up. There's a YouTube video that you can see that somebody actually photographed all those 1,100 salmon trying to get up that blocked culvert area. The other constraint we're talking about and facing is financial. The cost of all the options, excluding the open ravine, are so high that I have serious doubts that the monies needed to construct any of the bridge options can be raised, and certainly not by 2023, so you can start construction in 2024. From both a private property perspective as well as for salmon passage, we need a better culvert installed as soon as possible, sooner than 2024 if possible. Your alternative selection decision will affect other entities such as PUD. Is that me? All right, I'm sorry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
And please review my written comments.
Thank you, sir.
We are trying to come up with an alternative that is making it affordable.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John Pettit, I see you've come back into the boardroom.
My name's John Pettit. I live on Rich Road, and I was out there talking to Josh, resolving a problem that the county has with somebody on a property ownership thing, so we work through things. I help you a lot of times. You may not know it, because I'm actually helping the client, but I'm helping them at the same time. So I found something really interesting, and I thought I just wanted to share this some about. There's going to be a couple things I talk about. One is I found as I was doing my research regarding the what would be called the seat of government for Thurston County, I happened to come across a City of Olympia ordinance list. And you know, it's really interesting. We don't think about the City of Olympia being as old as it is. Think of it this way. It was before the Civil War. Before the Civil War. And they had really important things they were talking about, like removal of Indians. They had an ordinance that the only way an Indian could be in town basically was if the town marshal allowed them and gave them permission to be there. Preventing reckless and fast driving in Olympia, 1860. Okay, I'm trying to think what horse was going too fast down the street. Prohibit the use and carrying of deadly weapons. Well, that's still a topic in today's environment. Prevention of swine running at large. I guess people need to keep their pigs locked up. Then, of course, they had a couple of them here regarding the town of Olympia to become the county seat. They had a couple of ordinances. They had that, and then they amended it. Had to do with building a facility for the county seat. And prevention of the spread of smallpox. See, they even had pandemic issues then. And, you know, I guess my point is history sometimes points out a lot of things, but we have to rely upon history for our facts that we're moving forward with. One of the facts that we are moving forward with is the county seat. And my topic, of course, is one of your favorite topics, which is the atrium. The atrium is an office building that the county's intending on moving forward with the lease. The atrium, if you saw my little maps that I gave you guys, the little red circle area is the area where the county seat is. That was established in 1861, and it's noted in legal review with the Attorney General, and even the case that Elizabeth Petrich lost with against in the Supreme Court, trying to redefine what the county seat is. So it's a hardcore, and if you take a look, the atrium from the closest spot, the atrium is another 4,300 feet further away from it than that. So there's no possible way that the atrium is in it, and that'll be a topic. It's going to be, you're going to have to explain to elected officials when they start violating the law, if they move their offices out of the county seat, they need to be removed from office. And that's probably some litigation that's going to be coming in the future. So I guess one of the things I ask people sometimes, have you ever went to the store and bought something? You got home, you got it, you own it, you can't return it, and then you find out it's not what you thought it was. Okay? It's not a lot of fun. And what's happening right now, the county is in the process of buying something, millions and millions of dollars for something that they don't own. That's a big mistake. You still have the opportunity to do some fixing. I'm going to suggest use that time and get it fixed before going into a spot where litigation may make you say, I wish I hadn't done that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Mr. Gary Wiry. I know you said no. Do you want to provide public testimony? No. Okay. I have Diane Perlman. Mark, no. Do you want to provide public testimony today? Thank you. Next, I have Janet Nunn.
Hi there, my name is Janet Nunn. I am David Jennings' wife. I too live at 3932 Biscay Street Northwest, and I kind of wanted to pick up where he left off. He was talking about the 4 possible alternatives regarding Green Cove Creek culvert replacement. And those alternatives were presented to you guys last week as being opening it all up, daylighting, I think is the term. The second possible alternative was a pedestrian bridge. The third is kind of replacing the bridge in kind with a road, what it is now. And then the fourth was deemed to be unbuildable by them due to, I think, the geologic constraints, but it was a road bridge all concreted in with a culvert underneath. So given those alternatives, there are a couple of concerns that my husband and I have. One of them is emergency response times were discussed last week, that it would be 2 minutes longer to respond if the road were closed and quote unquote daylighted. First of all, this is going to happen with repair for a few years anyway, until it is repaired. But my husband provided a letter with a map at the back talking about the response times with some key places circled, including the culvert itself, the turn from Biscay to Sunset Beach, which was felt to be a very sharp turn. But if you kind of look at the 2 other existing turns, at least one of which would need to be made, there's going to be a sharp turn. There's a sharp turn now. There's going to be a sharp turn in the future. That's what it comes down to. So I want to skip over one part and go very quickly. One of the things that my husband and I thought, wow, that would be a great idea if this project could be broken into 2 separate parts. The first part being addressing that undersized culvert, which is currently a 100% impenetrable fish barrier and has legally must be, because of the permit they got to work with Department of Fish and Wildlife, legally, that's got to be changed by 2024. If the project were, and all the damage that's already been caused, a slide on the downstream side, a slide on our property as well on the upstream side, the private residences are in danger as long as that underside culvert is in. If the project could be broken into two parts, first, removal of that culvert and opening it up. I think that we could get the money, the county could get the money for that to complete it by 2024. And then a second project that would be looking at the alternatives and coming up with the right answer. Right now, I just have a lot of doubts with concrete prices going up, us perhaps going into a recession. I have a lot of worries about being able to complete the entire project, which is what is supposed to happen by the end of '24. Another concern was with the PUD and the cost that it would be to them in replacing the water line. Did someone say something? Oh, I'm sorry. In replacing the water line. And this is also going to affect the power lines and telecommunication lines. And it just kind of seems like if they all kind of work together, and I know that's not your all's job, but I think if we proposed that they might be willing to work together. Thank you guys so much. Sorry, I'm nervous. I've never done this before. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Good job.
Okay, next I have Lynn Glore. You marked no, but I just want to make sure that you don't want to, okay. Next I have Terry Ballard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Terry Ballard, and I live in Tanglewild, which is unincorporated Thurston County. I applaud the Public Works because they work for unincorporated Thurston County. I appreciate all the work that they do for unincorporated. They don't belong, they're not a county asset, they're an unincorporated asset. And I kind of miss on the listing of new people. I'm kind of concerned about that we need some more law enforcement here. I never see law enforcement on the list. Why is that? I see everybody else but law enforcement. Is that why we don't need law enforcement? Because the prosecuting attorney got up here last week and said that he's not prosecuting people for possession or use. So that kind of puts a damper on the homeless. How are we going to take care of homeless? Didn't we just pay more tax for homeless? You know, if you want money out of the Veterans Fund, you're going to have to be on the state food program, and you're going to have Medicaid if you show no income. Why aren't the homeless being offered that? Okay, and why aren't they being offered that? I thought we want to get rid of homeless, get them on a path to enlightenment, get them on a path where we don't have to deal or pay money, but we keep the homeless down because we pay for them to be down. We don't give them a hand up, we give them a handout. There's over almost 80% of the homeless have a drug addiction or a mental health problem. Why are we not combating that? What are we doing in the districts that each one of you belong to combat the homeless? We're not paying taxes to keep the homeless. We're paying taxes to get them out of homeless. What is your mental health people doing in your social services department under the health department? What are they doing, okay, to combat homeless? Again, on the Veterans Fund side, how many people did we serve this month for veterans? Was it the 2 for the $1.2 million carryover into the year? Was that the case? No. Okay, and the deal that I really want to make with you is if I find out for any reason that you're using the road fund, the mental health fund, and the veterans fund for any other reason, and it was for any other reason, which I believe is the 3000 Pacific one, are you going to fire your manager? because he totally denied that we were using those funds for anything else but those funds. He said that he called me a liar last time I was up here, just like my septic tank. I was a liar until Mr. Pettis proved that Art's story was right, but we're still paying for that. That's just worthless. And the statement of what one does not know to be true, okay? Every unqualified statement of that which one does not know to be true is equivalent to a statement of that which he or she knows to be false. Also, when you report to staff, when staff reports to you and wrongfully reports to you, you don't go into court and blame because you signed a document saying that everything was okie dokie, and then you go into court and then you say that, oh, it was staff's fault. Well, if staff falsely reported, that's under RCW 42.20.040, and that's a gross misdemeanor. So we need to start putting staff to the fire for their reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Doug Carmen.
Thank you. I'm here representing Long Lake and Lake Lawrence Management District Steering Committees today. Commissioners, I'm here in response to a new revelation regarding LMD expenses this past year. We believed that most of the financial issues would have been resolved by now. Since 2017, we have had 3 fairly lengthy issues with the county management. County staff could not or would not resolve them, and after many months, it was necessary to bring the issues to your attention. Each time, after several discussions between you, staff, and LMD leadership, those issues were resolved, but the systemic issues with staff have persisted. Once again, we find ourselves requiring your assistance to make things right. Because of the systemic nature of these issues, we feel it is important that staff understand your intent as it regards your LMDs. In addition, when Patterson Lake and Offutt Lake become LMDs, the 4,200 plus LMD members deserve an understanding of your intent. To that end, we have provided an example for your consideration as attachment 1 to the letter I will leave. And to point out some of these issues, first issue is unbudgeted IT development expenses. In February of 2022, we were informed by staff that the 13th month report would include $18,000 in our December 2021 Interfund Information Technology account. The project started in March of 2021 and was completed in November of 2021. There was never a mention of this during any budget discussion, and these were not included in the interfund reimbursement because staff did not inform you or us about it. So it could have been included in that reimbursement, but it wasn't. Solution to issue 1. Public Works submit a policy level request to reimburse LMDs for this expense for the mid-year budget amendments. Second is for you to issue a letter of intent such as attachment 1 to my letter. Get the right page here. Issue 2, communication, transparency, and trust issues. Since 2020, I'll get it. Majority of these issues began in 2016. September of 2017 to 2018, after months of discussion, we came to an agreement where Noxious Weed would pay for 50% of the aquatic weed specialists, and Lake Lawrence would pay for 15, Long Lake would pay for 50. That was done, and it was a good resolution. However, the other interfund charges to that were charged 100% to the LMDs. So Noxious Weed didn't pay their 50%. We were paying for them. This cost us over thousands of dollars over 3 years. I'll jump to the there's a lot of miscommunication and issues there that I'll jump past it. Resolution to that is for you to issue your letter that we suggest in the attachment. Requires stakeholder collaboration in staff's LMD administrative rules. I'll go back to that. They have developed administrative rules for working with LMDs, and they, without any input from any of the stakeholders. And there are some that we will be back here to talk to you about because they're not workable. So I will leave a copy of my full letter for you to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Frank Hudick.
Thank you for your service. Frank Udick, Lawrence Lake, 16246 Pleasant Beach Drive. RCW 3661 states in part, the legislature finds that the environmental, recreational, and aesthetic values of many of the state's lakes are threatened by eutrophication and other deterioration, and that existing governmental authorities are unable to adequately improve and maintain the quality of the state's lakes. World Health Organization report on toxic cyanobacteria in water states, cyanobacterial toxins are among the most hazardous substances widely found in water bodies. They occur naturally, but human activity influences the extent to which toxic cyanobacteria proliferate. Therefore, management of lakes, reservoirs, and rivers to prevent cyanobacterial blooms is critical to protect human health. 2009 U.S. EPA National Lakes Assessment Report states 13 of 39 Washington state lakes tested, 33%, had moderate to high risk of exposure to harmful algal toxins, cyanotoxins. 2020 Washington State Departments of Ecology and Health report states, of the 50 states, Washington State ranked 4th worst in the United States. Toxic algae problems in Washington State and Thurston County are on the rise. 2019 Thurston County Water Resources Monitoring Report states, harmful algal blooms have produced biotoxins that can cause illness. Microcystin is a potent cellular inhibiting protein phosphatase, which causes hepatic necrosis and hemorrhaging into liver tissues of mammals and other vertebrates, including fish. The preceding 4 published references independently and objectively define toxic algae as a significant public health concern for the lakes in Thurston County. Our contention is that while LMDs are not the solution in and of themselves, they are specifically authorized by RCW 3661 as a government-citizen partnership to address lake deterioration public safety issues. Together, we can be the solution, but for every dollar not spent on direct boots-on-the-ground actions, we denigrate the intent of the RCW. LMDs are a fee-for-service partnership, not a source of funds to balance county budgets and not a forum for unilateral actions such as Doug alludes to in his report. New LMDs such as Patterson and Offutt should be encouraged, not discouraged, by recently proposed admin rules that LMD stakeholders have not yet been privy to. Accordingly, we hereby endorse Mr. Carmen's proposal for a letter of intent from the BoCC regarding LMDs, as well as his comments regarding stakeholder involvement in the development of LMD admin rules. On a personal level, my residential property tax increased $721.02 this past year alone. Adding to this irony, according to news reports, the Washington State budget surplus forecast now exceeds a record $15 billion. Accordingly, you hereby have my permission to use our property tax increase for pencils, geodata services, IT upgrades, office space rental, Olympic Fire District funds, and any other indirect interfund costs from our LMD. Join the stakeholders. I personally invite all of you to come swim in our lake during the next toxic algae bloom. We're 24 miles away. Take home a fish or two for dinner My kids and I will be on the sidelines watching. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Next, I have Lynn Fitzhugh.
Thank you. My name is Lynn Fitzhugh. I live in Olympia. I am from Friends of Trees, the action group of Restoring Earth Connection. And I'm here today to present to you a letter from a dozen environmental groups and faith communities in Thurston County. These groups together represent all the environmental groups in the county who by their bylaws can allow to be taking a position. Their combined membership represents thousands and thousands of residents of Thurston County. We are asking you today to write to the Department of Natural Resources and to do everything else in your power to stop them from cutting the trees, especially the legacy trees in Capitol Forest. Legacy forest being trees that regenerated from original cuts that took place before World War II because the understory was not destroyed, as is today's logging practice. Almost 6,000 acres of this legacy forest is scheduled for cutting in the next decade, eliminating almost all of the remaining legacy forest. The largest 1% holds roughly half the carbon stored in the forest. This is why Northwest forests are considered some of the most important in the world for carbon drawdown. This is a climate issue. The older and the bigger the tree, the more it draws down annually, and the more it also stores. The minute it is cut, 50% of its stored carbon is released, and depending upon wood use, the rest of the carbon as well may be released. For a replacement tree to become as effective as a 120-year-old tree, its annual drawdown, it would take another 120 years, which under current logging practice, it would never live to. Thus, these trees are literally irreplaceable. I hold up a picture, which I believe that you can see, and there's one over there, which was taken in 1906, which has two loggers lying down full length in the original cut of a tree that they are felling. None of us in this room have ever seen trees this size, except possibly the redwoods of California, because they were all logged at the turn of the century. The trees that we are talking about saving are their babies, dwarfs by comparison to the largest that we can currently see. The decisions we make now will determine whether our unborn descendants view pictures from Capitol Forest 2020 with the same foreign object that we view this picture now. There are 45,300 acres of Capitol Forest in Thurston County. During the creation of the Thurston Mitigation Plan, the consultant initially called for the planting of 39,000 acres of trees. While not all of Capitol Forest will be cut, significant parcels each year are scheduled to be cut, and it is clear that our mitigation plan will be significantly negatively impacted if this happens. I urge you to read over the letter that I submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Brett Townbridge.
Thank you again for allowing me to speak. I have turned in a fairly lengthy written thing, which I'd like you guys to decide to consider when you're deciding, or considering this week whether or not to go forward with the Patterson Lake project. I provided this map to you folks today.
Sir, for the record,
Recently
can you state your name and where you reside in the county, please?
My name's Brett Trowbridge, 5911 Hanson Street, Southeast Olympia. I've drawn an X on one property on this map, and that is the 40 acres that my wife and I own that I've been complaining about so much that I thought should be a conservation district. So, to my surprise, it's not one of the selected properties. I just found this out. So, I'm not going to be charged for this, at least for that property, and therefore I can't have anything done to my property, I guess. It's really a conservation zone, isn't it? It's 500 feet of lily pads. All I need now is for you guys to draw on the map where that conservation zone is, which the 3661 everyone's been talking about provides for. When appropriate, there shall be conservation districts. That's the whole point of these maps. So this makes me very happy. Can you believe I'm actually happy about something having to do with this lake? I love it that you, whether it's Paula Lowe, I see she's on the list, or Ms. Cracknell, whoever excluded me, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You'll notice that there's several other properties that are on the lake and have waterfront and have also been excluded. So it's not true that all the properties except Burlington Northern are on the list. That's what's been represented, but that's not true. Again, I just thank you very much for excluding my 40-acre wetlands, which I've been yelling about so much, and please draw the associated district on the water where the stuff is going to be spared. 100, let's see. I feel like it's almost impossible to figure out what this project really is that's being proposed. You know, now we find out that we're going to have this IVAMP. I just heard about that last week. You know, I've been talking to you about this since last summer. Under the new county policy that was announced at this meeting I'm complaining about, the county does have all control. Like I've been saying they don't. I've been saying that Mrs. Lowe has most of the control. You're right, under this new policy, she doesn't. So I'm happy about that too. At first I thought that the project was that we were going to have alum treatments and herbicides. That was pretty much what everybody said. So now to find out that instead there's going to be this IVANCE selected and paid for by Ms. Cracknell, which is going to select all the areas in the lake, which weeds are going to be removed and which aren't, and some are going to be encouraged, I guess. And we don't get to know about any of this until after we've been approved for the vote and each house is on the line for $5,000. So I only have 21 seconds left. I'll yield.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the boardroom that would like to provide testimony today? No? Going once, twice? We'll move on to Zoom. And County Manager, can you please call? I cannot see.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be going based on the order that I see on the Zoom screen. I see Ms. Paula Lowe would like to provide testimony this afternoon.
Hello, this is Paula Lowe, 5202 Rumack Street Southeast, Olympia, Patterson Lake. I'm part of the leadership team to organize the Patterson Lake Management District meeting. I didn't plan to speak, but just quickly, all the documents were sent in to Tim Wilson on December 2nd, 2021. And we are waiting for the commissioners to approve the documentation so we can move forward with the Patterson Lake Management District. We have about 35% of the people who signed the petition, far more than were needed or required. And so we would like to move forward with it as soon as possible so that we can start the Integrated Aquatic Vegetation Management Plan study by spring of 2023. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I have Mrs. Esther Cronberg.
Yeah, hi. This is Esther Cronberg from Green Cove Watershed. I have listened to the May 19th work session regarding Citizens for Clean Black Lakes petition to dissolve the flood control district. I am left with more questions than answers. And since the commissioners are accepting further testimony on this question from staff and attorneys, I request our communications and comments here be included in the agency record on this matter. My first question is why there isn't a staff report. I believe that's a standard practice when the commissioners have a decision they need to make. Why are staff being called in now after a public hearing when this has been an issue for 9 months? I'd also like to ask, under which state law Mr. Chavez claims there are 2 paths to lake management for water quality? Besides the plain wording of RCW 8538 itself, the only legal opinion I could find is an Attorney General opinion from 1989, which clearly states the public purpose of projects in districts created under 8538 is, quote, either to escape the ravages or else to secure the benefits of water and its effects, close quotes. Where did this distortion of the law originate? Who decided it was proper to create a flood control district with emergency powers that can bypass SEPA and other permitting requirements in perpetuity to do what lake management districts are clearly designed to do by the legislature for specific projects with an end date, especially on a lake that does not flood? Why did the county present this as an option? Who came up with this? Why? And what was the public purpose? 3, Ms. Petrick advised the commissioners there's a financial risk because of the bond. But when the commissioners were considering the bond, legal staff and Mr. Chavez, and the clause in the bond itself stated there would be no liability for the county. Why did the legal staff lie about this? Was this bond obtained fraudulently? Why were the commissioners told at the time there was no financial risk? I think that commissioners need to find out and also need to read the RCW for themselves instead of relying on the faulty advice they have been getting. 4, when considering financial risk, I believe the commissioners need to think beyond the bond. What's the financial risk of contaminating the drinking water? What's the county's liability if people get sick from drinking it and sue? What's the county's liability for violating the Clean Water Act by putting toxic substances into surface waters with endangered species? 5, your other lawyer, Mr. Burns, completely misrepresented the case that I have quoted numerous times and which I sent to you via email, further eroding any trust in the legal advice you're getting. The case was Northwest Environmental Advocates versus the EPA, and it dealt specifically with the denial of a petition by Northwest Advocates to the EPA asking it to update Washington's nearly 30-year-old water quality standards to protect aquatic life from toxics. The EPA relied on its assumption that ecology would take care of the problem, a reliance the judge deemed unjustified because, quote, Washington has abdicated its duties, close quote. I think the county has also abdicated its duty to protect our water by relying on ecology's permit. 6, finally, a question was raised as to legal barriers that would prevent the commission from suspending operations at Black Lake that are routinely done on other lakes because of public interest. Ms. Cracknell commented that our lakes will need active management if toxics are used or not. My question is, what's the public purpose of putting poisons in the water in any lake?
30 seconds,
Why
ma'am.
doesn't the county
30
adopt
seconds.
I'll be almost done. Thanks. Why doesn't the county adopt an organic system that incorporates biological control agents and establishes a more resilient ecology? Beyond pesticides, an advocacy group states using toxics is favored by many, but, quote, is both counterproductive and hazardous. Several herbicides on the list of acceptable poisons used by the county when deemed appropriate by staff have significant hazards. Since lakes lead active management either way, why doesn't the county commit itself to organic management that doesn't threaten the public health? I've sent the commissioners science-based solutions to algae and weeds.
Please wrap it up, ma'am.
I'll be sending you the documents that I referred to here by email. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have a phone number with the last 4 digits of 5287.
That's me, Gary Durker.
Go ahead, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Oh, sorry. My name's Jerry Durker. I live at 2826 Cooper Point Road, Northwest, Olympia, Washington, 98502. I live near the Green Cove Creek area, and I have a stream and a pond here that used to have a toxic algae bloom in it, but I just managed to pull the garbage out of the pond, and the ducks ate all the algae. And I have to say that that the use of chemicals in the strategic groundwater preserve for the county, for the state capital here, which is a sole source aquifer in this area and stuff. I do not see how putting contamination or toxic materials in there for any reason can be justified, since there's actually a WAC that says you're not supposed to have any activities that do these kinds of things in these kinds of areas, including overbuilding and things of that nature. Today, there is a meeting that was running live. It's a joint task force of the legislature about water resources viewed in the post-EMA and the Foster decisions, okay, which require post-EMA with cumulative impacts. So there's no longer going to be any de minimis use or de minimis impacts to water quality or water resources in this area and in the state of Washington that will be allowed anymore under the new things. It's a very serious problem, and right now Thurston County is under a drought condition, and if what's the liability going to be if the Thurston County has, if the state capital has to move because Thurston County has contaminated the water resources of the county for drinking and for the salmon and everything? This is not, I believe that's a serious liability problem. What's the liability problem for the that you're going to get from taking and stealing our civil and constitutional rights to have a quasi-judicial decision done by an impartial, independent organization instead of one who, like the Thursday meeting clearly showed, that the only thing that you guys were interested in was how you were being protected and stuff, and whether or not you were liable, and whether or not you had an interest in the matter. Okay, well, obviously, if you had an interest in the matter, you couldn't be a judge or anyone considering this. It would violate Article 2, Section 30 of the Washington State Constitution, as well as the statutes on appearance of fairness doctrine, and which in the first two sentences says what a quasi-judicial decision is. Obviously, civil rights cases, abuse of public office cases, and thefts of public funds and resources, and thefts and public thefts of private funds and resources from people, hundreds of them, are going to be a problem, since you have the only public purpose for a flood control district is for taking care of things concerning flooding and flood controls. That's the only
15 seconds, sir. 15 seconds. 15 seconds.
My family's been involved in a water resources movement and these kinds of issues for 60 or 70 or 100, almost 100 years and stuff. And this is the first time that anybody has taken and stolen the rights of the emergency
Please wrap it up, sir. Please wrap it up. Your time is up.
Thank you very much for being there, and I hope you can take and consider our information that we've given you. Bye-bye.
I don't have anybody else in Zoom. Madam Chair, I think that will conclude public testimony.
Okay. It is 2:56. Do you have a county manager's update?
Yeah, a quick update. I'd like to follow up to a public comment you received from Mr. Drake last week, and it was related to a building permit associated with a above-ground pool. Staff is looking into this matter, and in fact, this has taken the opportunity to look at the this permit process. And in fact, yes, it has gone through a lengthy process. So we're looking as to how we can streamline this particular permit application with the objective that any similar permits in the future will be a counter permit process. So it will be delivered the same day they were submitted. More to come on this, but we're working with the citizen, and I appreciate Mr. Drake bringing it up to our attention. That will give us an opportunity to look at the processes that we have in place and how we can improve the service to our citizens. So,
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
No comments, thank you.
Do you want a consent motion before we break?
Yes. And
I would move to approve consent items 3A through 3F.
is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Motion passes. With that, we will break the Board of County Commissioners meeting, and we will be picking up the public hearing set. This will be in a different Zoom, so if you're tuning in for any other board items, you can join later on. So we will be joining in a different Zoom for the public hearing.
do you mind recessing this meeting, please?
I will recess this meeting.
Thank you.